All right, welcome everyone to our featured interview today. We're super excited to have Ryan Johnson with GenWealth Capital here joining us. Ryan, we're gonna jump right in. Would love to just get to know you a little bit better, and could you go over your background and what you do for a living presently, and maybe before your real estate journey?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, guys. It's an honor to be here. We've been following each other for a little while now, so it's nice. It's kind of cool coming full circle to be interviewed by you guys. So yeah, for my career, from my W-2 job for the last 14 years, I'm what you call a CRNA, or a certified registered nurse anesthetist, and in that role, I've been administering anesthetics for the last 14 years with a license, and I trained for 3 years to have that role. So to individuals or to patients in Houston, having surgery. So I put people to sleep for a living for the last 17 years.
Wow. Okay. Well, cool. Yeah. And kind of, given, background and doing well over in the health industry and all that, what got you interested in multifamily?
About 8 years into my career, I kind of realized that I was experiencing a little burnout. And while the income was great, I kind of realized that the only way to scale the income was to work more hours. And, you see a lot of, physicians and nurses doing that. They're working 60, 70, 80 hours a week and making great income. But on the flip side, they're in the hospital all day or all night, away from their families and missing a lot of just memories in their life. And, I didn't really want that person to be me. And, I realized that there was not a ton of professional growth within that field. I mean, while the income was great and my colleagues were wonderful, I kind of like, okay, I'm at that time, I guess I was like 37. I'm like, okay, I'm 37, 38. Like, is this it? Like, is this kind of the pinnacle of my, professional career, just kind of slogging it away in the hospital? And, that didn't really sit well with me. I kind of always want to be, growing. I'm kind of the Tony Robbins mentality. You're either growing or you're dying. And at that point I was kind of dying. So I'm like, okay, I can kind of just be the guy that walks into the hospital every day, kind of dreading it, or I can try to do something different. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do something different. So I did kind of take the long route, and, I started on bigger pockets like everyone else, and, started flipping land, and then met partners on bigger pockets, and, flipped houses, started building new houses, started building rentals, and kind of just grew kind of from, small scale rentals to larger properties with partners.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great journey for sure. Could you walk us through a little bit more detail about maybe, it sounds like you kind of started small and scaled up, but, making that jump from small single family to large multifamily is often pretty daunting for a lot of people. So how did you overcome that? And what did that journey look like to your first large apartment complex?
Yeah, so I noticed the entire time that I was, doing the smaller deals, I was consuming content on the larger deals. And I think it was just a lot of limiting beliefs. I was listening to the Old Capital podcast, but, flipping houses, right? And that's just kind of, I was just fascinated just with the business overall. Like, I like the team aspect of it. I like that you didn't have to know everything. You didn't have to be the person that knows everything. It's like, there's different, it's a team sport, like everyone says. And I really like that. And so I decided, my first step was, okay, I'm going to, to get out, I'm going to LP in my first deal. And that ended up being in the Henry, which has been a smoking deal, by the way. Thanks, guys. And, I kind of continued, my, my relationship with you guys. And really, I think a month after I, invested in the Henry, I was like, okay, I'm going to join a mentorship program. So I did pay for a mentorship program. I realized, okay, I paid $120,000 in student loans to get this graduate degree to make X income, right? So I can pay for mentorship program if I'm trying to replace that income and to do something completely different. So I kind of looked at, me entering the multifamily space as like me entering not just something like a side gig, even though at first it was a side gig, me trying to completely change profession, because I want this to be my profession now, not just like kind of a side gig. So I did the mentorship program. And then just partnerships, you have to dedicate the time. And I looked at it as like, okay, I had to study all night and put in all these hours to learn how to do anesthesia. So I have to kind of almost do the same thing if I'm trying to enter the profession.
Yeah, that's cool. I like the way the kind of the parallels with school and with multifamily and all that. Yeah, definitely. I know when I was starting out, for me, it was kind of pretty similar actually. So yeah, just kind of wanted to see, I know you're kind of a little earlier in your multifamily career and all that, but wanted to, if you've had any challenges in terms of, trying to get to where, you are now. I know you mentioned one of them, and maybe that is the biggest one, kind of the limiting belief of, hey, how do you go from that, single family to multifamily? But yeah, I'd love for you if you could kind of, just touch on, biggest challenges and what that's looked like.
I mean, I think from a mindset perspective, I mean, it helps to join like, partners or an organization that has a lot of people doing the same thing, because you're going to meet people that were exactly in your shoes maybe a year or two ago. And you're like, oh, wow, you've closed 3 or 4 large deals already. So that definitely helps, because you have people saying, hey, I was in your position. This is how I would maybe position yourself in this situation. Maybe this is an angle that I would take. So, I mean, it helps to seek out that mentorship, whether it's free mentorship, great. Whether you have to pay for it, great. I mean, it definitely, the mentorship from people that are way more experienced than you, I mean, it pays dividends. I would say it's like from a deal perspective, just like if you're kind of talking more like deal related, I mean, I would say like, as far as like difficulties, I mean, like, capex budgets for those things these days. I mean, how can you estimate capex budgets these days with like material prices going through the roof, labor prices going through the roof? So that's always a challenge. Like on my end, I do a lot of capex stuff with GenWealth, and so like we don't have an in-house GC. So it's like, okay, how can we get people out there to these deals early to give us, accurate bids? Are these bids even going to be the same bids 3 or 4 weeks down the road? So, I mean, those can be like just deal by deal challenges that you're dealing with.
Yeah, makes sense. So now, it sounds like you got a taste for it on the passive side, and now you're on the active side and starting to see more of the workings of these bigger properties. So, I'm sure your criteria has begun to narrow. So what's some of the criteria that you look for when maybe assessing an investment opportunity?
A lot of our deal flows in Houston, obviously. I mean, it's easy for us. We have, or Juan has the relationships here. So we walk a ton of deals in Houston. We can get to them very, very quickly. So, I like to, obviously we're looking at the numbers and, does it underwrite well, but, you're looking at definitely like the neighborhood. I mean, Houston, in Austin as well, but especially Houston is very pockety. You could have a pocket where there's the average income is 500,000, and then like 3 or 4 blocks, the average income is like 20,000, right? So you have to make sure you're comfortable with that pocket. And, kind of from an investor relations standpoint, which I do a lot in investor relations, it's like, okay, like this area, or are they gonna like this deal story? So you kind of have to look at it like holistically. You can look at the numbers and say, okay, yeah, this underwrites, but like, do we like the neighborhood? Do we like, do we like the position? Like, is it in the path of progress? I mean, we love stuff that is in the path of progress, definitely. So like, do we feel like the path of progress is moving that way? And I mean, you can look at all the data points, but it just helps like driving in the neighborhood and kind of just feeling it out and say, okay, like this feels good. And it's almost the same thing you're going to do with like a flip, right? You're driving and you're about to buy this flip. You're looking in this neighborhood. Okay, like, do we feel like this? What's this area going to look like? Numbers wise, is there growth? But then like, what does it feel like? And then will investors feel the same way?
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense for sure. Location, you can put bunch of money into a property, but can't change the location. So,
correct. Yeah.
But, I guess, sounds like, I think you've kind of, stacked a few things in your favor, that it probably helped you, kind of with the trajectory and all that, given, you it left your, W-2 job and all that. But, what advice do you think you'd give someone kind of starting out, and just to, kind of maybe give them a leg up, or, at least stack cards in their favor?
Yeah, I mean, as we were kind of mentioning earlier, I mean, this is a team sport, and it's easy as we say in our mentorship. People will call you out if you're having I'm a mentality, meaning like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and you're going to do everything, right? So it's like, no, you're not going to do everything. Maybe focus on one role if you're starting out. Like maybe you have an engineering degree or some type of a math degree, and you're a spreadsheet, you can geek out on spreadsheets. Okay, perfect. You're the underwriter, right? And if you can pop out underwriting multiple deals a day versus going to take me hours to do one, then maybe you offer that up and say, hey, look, go to some experienced people and say, hey, look, I'll underwrite for you for free. I can do this. I'm efficient at this. Maybe your superpower is marketing, right? People are always looking for like good marketing skills. Maybe your superpower is capital raising. Maybe you have a large network of accredited investors. So I think like focus on one aspect first, and try to just be the master at that aspect. And then as you kind of get onto deals, whether you're jumping on other people's deals or you're doing your own deals, you're going to be gaining more skills, more experience, and your tool belt is going to grow. But I would say like really focus in on one thing. And I mean, even when you join these mentorship programs, your first 6 months to a year, you're underwriting people, you're calling brokers, you're kind of learning how to do it all because you want this holistic view of the business. But I think like once you start doing deals, like it might just be more beneficial to focus on one aspect and master that craft, and then kind of expand from there.
Yeah, that's great advice. So now that you're more established now, you're in with GenWealth Capital. So, what are your plans either as an individual, maybe as a company, or where do you see the future has in store for you guys?
Well, I mean, personally, this is my first time really not working at W-2. I mean, I didn't work during training, but, I was working, 60 to 80 hours a week during training at the hospital, working for free, basically. I was paying them to show up, actually. And so I'm kind of going through, I don't know if you've ever read the book, like the first 90 days. So you're almost kind of like, this is a completely new environment, completely new goal. So I'm really just trying to feel it out and, manage my time. Before I was doing it like nights and weekends and early mornings. So now I have more time. So like, how can I get everything I was done plus more? So how to manage your time efficiently. So I'm kind of going through that. And after the 90-day mark, I'm going to kind of sit down and like reassess everything just to make sure like everything is kind of just clicking. And we're constantly we're touring all the deals in Houston. We're submitting multiple LOIs a month, and it's very competitive out there. But it's kind of, we have the mentality like we're going to keep swinging, and eventually we're going to hit one. And we're staying real active, staying top of mind with investors. And for the first few months, my goal was to kind of tweak the marketing of our business. And, that's another thing that I love about multifamily that I didn't really realize, working in a W-2, healthcare is run a lot on protocols, right? And it has to be, right? Because it's patient safety, people's lives in your hand. Everything has been like, randomized controlled trials to do this type of, intervention or drugs. But, the real estate in general, or entrepreneurship in general, is very creative, whether you're creating a living space for someone, or you're creating marketing for your brand, or creating how you're going to generate leads. It's very creative. So it's a lot of, my first 3 months out is to kind of like take a look at all that creativity and like, okay, tweak certain things to, to see how we can grow as a business together.
Cool. It's awesome. So if you were starting over again, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say just, try to keep your limiting beliefs in check. I mean, for instance, I build duplexes, and I still do that. I still do that on the side, and it's kind of a passive thing for me. And my goal was to build 10 over 5 years. And at the time, it seemed like, oh, that was a lot, but I probably could have built 10 in 1 year if I would have just kind of got out of my own way. And it's the same with multifamily. I could have started doing it early. I guess I thought I had to follow the traditional trajectory, and some people do that, and it was fine. I did learn a lot of valuable skills by doing the smaller deals, but it's not necessarily a requirement. You can make the decision to jump into it whenever you want. But so I would say, focus on one role and try to focus on a superpower, as I said before, and then just kind of get out of your own way, and have people around you that will check you when you're getting in your own way.
That's great advice. Yeah. So I know you mentioned the book, The First 90 Days. So I think everybody should definitely check that one out. But do you have any other recommendations that maybe gave you a paradigm shift or maybe made a big impact on your journey?
I mean, I think probably the most recent one that I've read within the last year is Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And I really like that book. It kind of, there's always going to be problems in anything in life, or any deal that you do that, were completely unexpected. But there's always a who that can help you kind of along the way. So my goal is to just always be looking for who's, and then always try to be someone else's who as well. So I kind of look into it as like I have one hand up and one hand down. Like I'm looking for who's to help pull me up, but then I'm gladly trying to pull other people up with me.
Yeah, love that. So I guess to kind of, sum it up, there's, very lots of team, participation, just team. It's not a, me, or you said I'm a do this or I'm gonna do that. And focus instead of trying to, master, multiple things at one time. And then, love the book. I'm part of a strategic coach, Dan Sullivan.
Oh, nice.
So, love that, who, not how. So, just, really appreciate your time today. And, it's been great to get to know you, over the past few years, and really appreciate all your tips. And, I guess how can people get in touch with you and ask more questions, or, potentially invest with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, so feel free to reach out to me via email. My email is ryan@genwealthcapital.com. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So if you look under Ryan Johnson, CRNA, I'll probably be the first person that pops up.
Awesome. Cool. Well, yeah, appreciate your time again, and good seeing you, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ryan.